You know, it's one thing to be right on something, and it's another to be like spot on something. And it's another to be spot on something and you're getting a lot of backing when doing so. So last Friday, week ago today, at this very time, sitting in this very seat, in front of this very camera, behind this very mic, talking to you right now, I said it's official. Dak, assuming he continued his incredible play, was the MVP of the NFL. Well, today, and even coming into today, or rather yesterday, the game when the Cowboys played the Seattle Seahawks, the whole narrative about Dak and Dallas was, yeah, Dak's good. Yeah, even Dak's haters were like, yeah, Dak's playing pretty awesome right now. I mean, his numbers are off the charts, and the Cowboys are in the midst of potentially chasing that number one seed, potentially chasing down the Eagles for the NFC East. Again, we'll see what happens as time goes on in that regard. There's a lot to be decided. A lot of it will happen between Philly and San Francisco this weekend, but the notion and the narrative around Dallas and Dak in particular was, well, they're good. They just can't beat the good teams, you know? Teams with winning records, of which they've really only played 2 this year. One, they got blitzed by San Francisco week 5, fair enough. And in week 9, when they played the Philadelphia Eagles, were, when I say inches, I mean literal inches from knocking out the defending NFC champs and the team I believe today to be the best team in all football, in the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, they faced the Seattle Seahawks, a playoff team a year ago, a team that's competing for another playoff spot this season, and did so, and Dak in particular, because this segment is about Dak, did so under circumstances that there was a big narrative that Dak maybe couldn't overcome. I thought was crazy, but that was the narrative. A game in which the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm not joking when I say this, this is not a hyperbole, this is not just me trying to make a scene, this is actual 100% facts. The Seahawks did not punt yesterday. Michael Dixon, punter for the Seahawks, never stepped foot in the field unless he was holding for extra points. Did not punt. Seattle scored 35. Geno had by far his best game of the season, his best game in weeks. Listen, he was dealing with the shoulder problem coming into this week. I don't know if it's because he had an extra week to rest. He looked as good as ever. Geno Smith, how about his numbers? 23 of 41, 334 yards through the air, a touchdown, 3 touchdowns through the air, 1 touchdown on the ground rushing. Did throw the interception to Deron Bland, had a QBR 0 to 100 of 91 and a passer rating of 97. Geno Smith was tremendous yesterday against that Dallas defense. More on them later in the show. Or late in the segment, really. When you consider the fact that Dak Prescott, behind what Pro Football Focus graded, and I trust those people as much as anybody in regards to how they break down tape and break down the NFL, Dak Prescott behind that offensive line, which is tremendous, was sacked 4 times. Dak Prescott got multiple drops during the game. I counted 3, might have been more, from CeeDee Lamb in the third and in the fourth quarters. Dak Prescott, without a true number 2 receiver, like Brandon Cooks. Do we like Brandon Cooks as much as we like Brandon Ayuk or Devontae Smith? Probably not. With Jake Ferguson as a tight end. Is Jake Ferguson as good as Dallas Goedert? Is he as good as George Kittle? Don't think so. And Dak Prescott dealing with pressure coming his face all different ways. Dak Prescott with virtually no running game to speak of, at least up until the fourth quarter when Tony Pollard got going. Didn't matter. Did not blink. Let's look at Dak's numbers, shall we? 29 of 41. That's 70% completion percentage. That's pretty good. 299 yards. Shame he couldn't get that extra yard to get to 300. 3 touchdowns. No interceptions. And QBR 0 to 175, which felt a bit low, but okay. Passer rating of 115.8. You know, I do this every time Dak plays well, and it's not going to get old. And frankly, it's not going away for a while the way that Dak Prescott is playing. The audience, if you're not familiar with the chant, it's okay. I'll learn it today. But to those who do know it, say it loud with me and do say it proud. Rain Dakota Prescott has been the best quarterback in the NFL this season. Not saying he's the best quarterback, period. That title still belongs to Mahomes. There's no question about that. But he's been the best this season. He's the MVP this season, and it's not really close. Today, it's not terribly close. Let's look at other MVP contenders. Let's compare them to Dak Prescott, okay? And we'll look at it from a numbers perspective, and then we'll provide context around that. Let's look at Jalen Hurts, okay? Because that's kind of a discussion. Jalen Hurts today is the Las Vegas favorite in multiple sports books to an MVP. Let's check Dak's numbers Let's check Jalen's numbers. Here we go, and I'll read it off for those who are listening on audio. Dak's numbers to the left, Jalen's to the right. Dak has a better completion percentage, more yards per game passing, more yards per attempt, better touchdown to interception ratio, better passer rating, better QBR. Better than Jalen across the board. And frankly, in the game that the Cowboys played the Eagles, yes, Philadelphia did win 28-23. Dak played better across the board statistically in that game as well. So let's move on from Jalen for a moment. Dak and Jalen will face each other again 9 days from now. I think all of us cannot wait for that matchup. Let's look at somebody who is often compared to with Dak and from a statistical standpoint. Let's look at Tua Tagovailoa. There's Dak's numbers, there's Tua's. Dak's better in completion percentage. Tua is better in pass yards per game and yards per attempt. But Dak has him in touchdown to interception ratio, QBR, and passer rating. So Tua's got him beaten in the 6 stats I got up there. Tua has him beaten 2. Dak's got him beaten 4. So the advantage, of course, there goes to Dak. And with respect to Tua, I don't think he's the most valuable player in his own offense. When we talk about the MVP discussion surrounding the Miami Dolphins, it's usually around Tyreek Hill more than it is Tua. And that's I apologize to Tua, apologize to Dolphins fans and Tua fans alike back in week 3. This is not a shot at Tua. He's simply not in the level that Dak Prescott is. Let's think about Lamar Jackson, and I love me some Lamar Jackson. He was a Steelers fan. Love Lamar. Oh, it's not even a contest. Dak beats him by completion by a decent margin. Beats him by a significant margin in pass yards per game. Beats him by a hair in yards per attempt. Beats him significantly in touchdown to interception ratio. Beats him significantly in passer rating. Beats him significantly in QBR. Let's look at the guy I just called. I think the guy we would all agree universally is the best quarterback in the league until proven otherwise is Mr. Patrick Mahomes. Let's look at his numbers compared to Dak's. Dak has a better completion percentage, more pass yards per game, more yards per attempt, better touchdown to interception ratio, much better passer rating, and a better QBR. Let's look finally now at Brock Purdy. And you guys know, again, all these guys I'm putting up here, love all of them. Love Brock Purdy as well. And some of these stats, Purdy beats Dak. So Dak's got him in completion percentage, barely has him in QBR, okay? And in touchdown interception ratio. Purdy, though, has him beat, and actually Dak's got him in pass yards per game, too. So there you go. But yeah, Purdy's got him beat in yards per attempt, okay? Purdy has him beat in passer rating as well. So from a statistical standpoint, Dak has all of the MVP candidates beat, at least from the quarterback position, because it's hard to compare Dak's stats to Tyreek Hill's or Myles Garrett's or TJ Watt's. You can't. They're different positions. They have very different responsibilities. What I can say, and I sort of alluded to it earlier, is I think more than anybody, this is not to put myself on a high horse, but I truly, to my core, believe this. I put more emphasis when we talk about MVP in the NFL, NBA, I put more emphasis on the valuable part than most people, if not almost everybody, at least who votes for the award, because I think that valuable part does flat out matter. The 5 guys I showed up there, 2 of them are not the most valuable player in their own offenses. Brock is not the most valuable in the Niners. You could argue that's Christian McCaffrey. I argue it's Trent Williams. With respect to Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams is ridiculous at left tackle. I heard someone called him the Shaq of the left tackle position. When you look at the blocking metrics and all this second, third level stats, they back that up. Trent Williams is an awesome football player. He's going to be in Canton one day. He's going to have a bust in Canton, Ohio. Okay? Tua, great. Very valuable to Miami. Not as valuable as Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is on pace to potentially have 2,000 yards receiving. That's how great he is. Lamar Jackson, great as he is. Aren't we kind of like with Baltimore where we're like, we have questions about Lamar's ability to throw the football? Me? I'm not one of them. Some have questions about Lamar. By the way, Lamar, yes, he has an MVP, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for that MVP at times. Has half the playoff wins that Dak Prescott has. Half. Now he has 1 and Dak has 2, so a little context there. Mahomes, again, to me, by a pretty significant margin, the best quarterback in the league. I think he's the 4th greatest quarterback ever. Right now. Excuse me. I would only take all time, if you look at their resumes, Brady, Montana, Peyton Manning, that's it. I think Mahomes is slowly putting together, or quickly putting together, rather, if you look at his career thus far, one of the most impressive quarterback resumes ever. I think he's going to be the only guy for some time to truly challenge Brady for that GOAT title. Dak's got him beat across the board. Before you say, hey, come on, what does Mahomes have as far as weapons? Outside of Travis Kelce, obviously. Well, Rashee Rice is starting to make an appearance and I mean, if you look at Rashee Rice's numbers compared to Zay Flowers' numbers, Rashee Rice has been the better player. He just has been. Don't get mad at me. Go check the stats, okay? He's got Rashee Rice, who's a nice player. Offensive line in Kansas City is solid, although some things to be desired. And while I love McCarthy, is he Andy Reid? No, he's not. I think Andy Reid's the best coach in the NFL. Dak has CeeDee Lamb, who's spectacular. Had some drops last night, but by and large was very good last night. And after the game on Amazon, and it wasn't a man's shot at Dak, I know, but just follow me here. Look at Jake Ferguson. Yeah, made the catch for the game-winning touchdown, at least the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter. Look at this kid. Nobody knew. Outside of Cowboys fans, nobody freaking knew who Jake Ferguson was before the season. Come on. Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is the Cowboys' number 2 receiver. He's so great that for Dallas, this is his 5th team, 6th team? He's played, I remember, for the Saints, for the Rams, Patriots, Texans. I mean, he's been all over the place. He's like Johnny Cash. He's been everywhere, man. It's like the Ryan Fitzpatrick of wide receivers. And that's no disrespect to Brandon Cooks. But is he what Jalen has in Devontae Smith, who, has a Heisman Trophy on his shelf? Or is he as good as Brandon Ayuk, who has multiple 1,000-yard seasons regardless of quarterback play? Does he have an elite running back? Now, you could argue Philly doesn't have that because Jalen is in large part the great in the run game, and that's to me boosts Jalen's case. Purdy's got Christian McCaffrey, who's the best player at his position. What does an MVP do? What does, as I talked about last month, I remember doing a segment on this. What does I call them blank check quarterbacks do? Is when things aren't going ideal, things aren't perfect, things aren't always going your way, it's not always peachy keen, red roses, you still get it done. The defense for Dallas until the final 5 minutes was awful. Objectively, awful. They didn't force a Seattle punt. Okay? The offensive line for Dallas gave up 4 sacks to a Seattle defense that had been reeling a little bit coming into this game. CeeDee Lamb dropped 3 passes in the second half. All three of them were critical. One, he got bailed out in a pass interference in the fourth quarter. Things weren't going Dak's way, and he didn't freaking blink. This next aspect, I'm not saying should matter to Dak's MVP case because the fact of the matter is MVP is in large part based off of your play, what you do on the field. But as far as the valuable part, the thing I've always loved about Dak, and I saw this back in his days at Mississippi State, I remember when he came to the league, I'm like, the maturity this kid has is off the charts that I saw at Mississippi State. He is, and you see guys like Micah Parsons. I mean, Micah Parsons said he blushes when he's around Dak. I mean, the guys love him in the locker room in Dallas. McCarthy was going on and on about Dak. A lot of that is his play, and a lot of it, let's be honest, kind of a lot of negative narratives around Dak Prescott that I and fellow Dak stands and defenders have had to defend for a while. Take a listen to this answer that Dak gave to a question regarding all the haters and all the doubters and all the naysayers and what they had to say about Dak coming into the season, and listen to Dak Prescott's response. Take a listen.
Dak, a lot has been said about you over certainly the last year, but for a while now.
Yeah.
Not a lot of it positive for a long time. All of a sudden now you're in the MVP conversation. There's people saying that you're playing the position better than anybody across the league. Aaron Rodgers is saying what he's saying about how you're playing the position. I'm wondering what the last year has been like for you psychologically. I know you try and block a lot of it out, but I got to imagine at least some of it seeps through. What is it like now to be in this spot and have, on some level, silenced a lot of people?
No difference when they're hating me and calling for me to my position. Honestly, I'm blessed. I'm super blessed, and I think about that each and every day that I wake up. I'm grateful for that opportunity to do that, and I go and attack the day that. I understand nobody's opinion defines me, and that's the great part about life, and that's the great opportunity that we all have, that people can say whatever they want, but I have the pen, I have the paper, and I'm the one writing. So because I'm playing as well as I am now doesn't mean that I'm going to stop, doesn't mean I'm going to listen to them now, appreciate them, but I don't care about their opinions right now any more than I did when they said that, when they're calling for my spot. So as I said, I'm blessed. This last year has been a reflection of that. A lot of great things have happened in my life, and they're going to continue to happen in my life because of my mindset and where I put the value of life.
That is Dak Prescott in a nutshell. Calm, poised, mature, always looking to get better. And let's be honest, Dak may tell you, and I'm not calling Dak a liar here, but Dak may tell you he isn't maybe listening to the haters, but he knows what they're saying. He does. He's not tone deaf to what the narrative is around surrounding Dak. And finally, this matters. I said this last week. Part of being MVP, or at least part of building an MVP case, is about narrative surrounding you. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron put together a fantastic statistical season individually and collectively as the Green Bay Packers team did in 2020. It didn't hurt Aaron's case, though, that the whole narrative was, hey, I mean, Jordan Love, they drafted him. The Packers didn't believe in Aaron. They thought he was on the decline, and he put together a phenomenal season in 2020. Just last year, Patrick Mahomes, hey, lost Tyreek Hill through 41 touchdown passes, led the Chiefs to the best record in football. The narrative didn't hurt their case. You heard some of the narratives sort of a little bit there in that clip that Dak was alluding to, that the reporter was alluding to before that. But one of the narratives that is still persisting even after the Seattle wins, oh, Dallas can't beat good teams. Listen, I'm not going to make Seattle out to be a world beater because they're not. But they are a playoff team. They are a playoff contender, and Dak hung 41 on them, didn't turn the ball over, which, again, I could have sworn I heard he was a turnover machine. Maybe that was just me, but I could have sworn that was a narrative coming in. This is a very interesting stat, and I'm going to give credit where it's due because it's a great stat. Greg Jennings, former Packers receiver, he was on FS1 today. I saw this today, okay? Dak doesn't beat good teams. You can't vote a guy the MVP if he's not beating the great teams. Interesting. There have been, not making this up, Greg Jennings put this graphic together earlier today on FS1. There have been 4 MVPs in the history of the National Football League that have played a schedule that have played a strength of schedule that was in the upper half of the league. So in other words, a hard schedule, and 1 MVP. They are Brady in 2010, Peyton in 2004, Rich Gannon in 2002, Favre in 96. That's it. Every other MVP that's ever played a bottom half strength of schedule. So if the narrative is that Dak can't win MVP because the schedule's weak, well, then you have to strip the MVPs from every MVP that's ever won, aside from Brady in 2010, Manning in 2004, Gannon in 2002, Favre in 96. It means all of their MVPs, if we're going by that narrative, are irrelevant. Dak is the MVP of the NFL. It's with respect to Jalen Hurts, who I think's in second. It's not particularly close. By the numbers, by the narratives, by the value, it's Dak, and it's Dak by a mile. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.